you doing? Yo. Well, we got a couple topics we could hit. Obviously, anything ancient angels is on the table. We could talk the Book of Enoch. We could talk about Sam Hain, or as they rebranded it, Halloween. Yeah. What's my take on Palestine? I would say I don't like what's going on in Palestine. That's basically my take. I'm not a fan of the war industrial complex. I'm not a fan of innocents being killed. Yeah, I'm against those things. I need your opinion on something. Okay, shoot. Oh, you want to talk about Iron Man? There's some incredibly let's just say the last couple videos I've posted, I notice some people who are just so set in their ways where they just want to believe what they want to believe. And I'm at the point where I basically have to say, you know what? I told you the truth. I know you're going to try to justify it in some kind of way. Your already conclusion that you've already came to, but I told you. I mean, that's kind of like, I feel like the blood is off my hands. I told you the truth, and now you do that with what you will. Let me see. Well, well, thank you. Am I pro-Jewish? I'm not pro anybody. I mean, obviously, I don't. I said I'm not for the war. I mean, I don't. I got to be honest. Based on what the news says, obviously, you should have a very strong opinion about which side you should pick. Now, obviously, I believe in God's prophecies about the Jews. I believe, like, but at this point, it's like I'm not sure that this is a prophetic thing happening right now. Obviously, all these things can be used together for the people who love God, but like, is this going to lead to some end times revival in Israel? Well, I hope so, but I mean, like, what if it doesn't? Are the people on the other side, are they beyond redemption too? No, I don't think that they are. So I mean, obviously, I would say that everybody should. Everybody has the same opportunity right now to go to heaven and be with Jesus forever through Jesus. But apart from him, there's no guarantees to any people apart from Jesus that they will be saved. Right? So that's my position as a Christian. So like, I don't think that there should be, put it this way, like, people who deny Jesus on both sides, which side am I on? Well, not on the side of that. Like, I think much gets played about the you have like the Jews versus the Muslims, but I don't think that's why they're fighting. I mean, which is interesting is you go over to Abu Dhabi and you have the Abrahamic family faith house, and for some reason they can get along over there. Well, what? So how can they get along over there, but they can't get along in Israel? Oh, that's weird, right? Maybe because it's a little different than that. Maybe it's a little more complicated than that. Maybe it is because the Western countries shoehorned in a country into the Middle East. Or maybe the terrorists are obviously, working for somebody. And it ain't Allah. It's for the war industrial complex, and they want another war. They want another war. They want to destabilize the Middle East once again. They want gasoline to be sky high, and they want to sell bombs and guns and tanks and jets and all that stuff. So I'm against that. Uh, I mean, I do find it interesting, and do not. This is not misinformation. This is what I theorized the last time I was on here. I find it very curious that guys slowly parachuted into a very secure country like Israel without them knowing it. Like, you do a sneak attack in the middle of the daytime, and they run roughshod through the country. Now that seemed sus. Now I've seen people like Charlie Kirk, who I'm not, put it this way, I'm not a big fan of Charlie Kirk, but he's not wrong about everything he says. And he was saying like he believed that there was a stand down order. I heard other videos about people saying there was a stand down order for like 7 hours, which obviously makes perfect sense because how could these people have been allowed to do that for like what they did unless they were allowed to do it? I mean, I don't think there's any way getting around that. Good morning. Yeah, so I mean, from what I saw, it did not make sense to me based on what we know about Israel and everything. Like, would they just allow that? I mean, they did. So I guess the answer is yes, they allowed that. I don't even get it. Well, you know, this is a thing, and this is no offense to anybody, but like, do we know for sure? I know a lot of people say that the Muslims are in the line of Ishmael, but Ishmael goes back a long way. Like, do we know that? I think a lot of people make assumptions that they do, but again, we're talking about like all the way back to Abraham. That's a long way. I mean, it's interesting when people talk about, you know, who are the real so-and-sos and who are not. Those family trees are very old and they're very long. Who actually has the receipts to say that? You know, who has the receipts to say that I'm related to so-and-so? Because I mean, again, like these get complicated when people get displaced. Obviously, after the destruction of the temple and the destruction of Jerusalem in like 70 AD, how many people can prove that they are related to Levi, Joseph, you know, any of the Judah, any of the tribes? I don't know. I don't know. Put it this way, I've done enough research to know that there's a lot of, thank you, there's a lot of sus things going on about the peoples in those lands. I mean, from what I can tell, you know, this is no offense to anyone, the Middle East has turned into like the elite sandbox where they play, they wreck things, they build up their blocks, they knock them down, and then they just obviously they make a mint off everything they do in that place. It's a mess. I mean, so overall, like I am of the belief at this point that if you don't believe the stuff that's going on in Ukraine, if you're skeptical about the things that are going on in Ukraine, when they show you about support Ukraine, we got to fund Ukraine war, we got to fund Ukraine over Russia. Well, why would you believe those same people when they're trying to tell you what's going on in Israel? Why would you believe that? I mean, I don't know. Like, it really is. It's like that. As long as the news media is saying things that fit my narrative, we trust them again. Don't trust them. I mean, obviously, the truth of the matter is, I don't know what we can all do, you know, for about anything in there. Obviously, if you have opportunities to like send aid to people personally, if you can help people out in any sort of way. Oh, you live in Ukraine. Oh, interesting. You moved here when the war started. Why did you do that? Yeah, I just think that it's this is possibly a Hegelian dialect situation where it's like problem, reaction, solution. So like I think that's the main thing where I'm trying to say is like if the news media is showing you the problem, well, they're waiting for your reaction because they already got the solution picked out. They already got the place they want you to get to. And I mean, and typically that would be like they want us to say, hey, we need to go fight. We either need to send tons of aid or we need to actually get boots on the ground. And like I said, I'm old enough to remember the last time they wanted us to go over in the Middle East to like get the bad guys. That didn't work out so well. It doesn't look like that place improved after we went there. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's my position on that. And outside of that, I don't really. But yeah, I'm with you on that. What I see it to be is that what you potentially have is, well, you have the war in Ukraine, in Russia, and then you have this war in the Middle East. Hey, what happens if the two kind of get combined in some kind of way? Hello. What happens if there is a merger of the sides? I mean, I think that's the real scary, possible scenario, is that they do get linked up somehow. You got like the Russians taking the Iranians and the side of Hamas, and then of course you have the Western countries taking the side of Israel, and then you have maybe China jump in, and then what do you have? You have World War III. Is that possibly World War III? And then you're talking about, yes, now you have your new world order situation fit right. Hello, yeah. So I think that's what I'm saying. It's like that's where I'm really like looking into, like that's the dangerous scenario. Yeah, well, the real conversation is about the Rothschilds in England drawing up the lines. Now that's a conversation probably for Rumble. I've gone a little bit there. If you guys had heard me on the Tinfoil Hat podcast, I talk about that. If you go do your genealogies in the Bible, let's just say there's a reason why certain people do not legitimize, some of the people over in the Middle East. Biblically, there's an explanation for that, and it's not racism. So I'm not going to go there on Instagram Live because, how Mark Zuckerberg might think about that. So I'm not going to do that. But yes, read your genealogies. There's some interesting stuff in there, for sure. Biblically, that's what I'm saying. Like, the more you do your research on your own, the more you learn things, and it does change the way you perceive things. But I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's funny that like we can get on these platforms and we can talk about our 9/11, like the actual 9/11, and so a lot of us don't believe the mainstream narrative about that. Okay, so just think about that. So if you don't believe that narrative now, don't automatically assume that the news media is telling the truth about Israel's 9/11. Maybe it's like the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. I am on Rumble. I am on Rumble, but I haven't done any live streams on there. I need to start doing that. I don't know. Yeah, you can't do that on YouTube. Typically, that's just safe for the podcast stuff. But it would be nice to speak freely on here. We're just not there yet. Yeah, I mean, the narratives are to get people to a certain point of view. Therefore, the solution makes sense. And then ultimately, it leads to more power, more centralized power. And I think that's what it's all about. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what I was saying. Like, so even Charlie Kirk, who kind of is mainstream Republican, he's obviously pro-Israel. He said straight up that there was a stand down situation, 7 hours. That's what most of us had said when we saw the slow moving sneak attack. We said, hey, how did that happen without them knowing it? Then the Egyptian intelligence said that they'd warned warned Israel, and obviously they allowed it to happen. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, well, it's he's questioning because obviously it's the only intellectually honest position because it does not make sense based on what we know about Israel. I mean, they're really secure. That's what I was saying. Like, do you think about it like that? Hey, don't they know that they have a hostile neighbor? Don't they have like a really tight security? So how did it happen? Because it's the same thing when people ask like, well, how come all this child sex trafficking, this human trafficking happens? How come our border leaks like a sieve? Because it's allowed to happen. I mean, these guys get these governments have so much control when they want it, and then there's times when they don't. Obviously, go back to 2020, 2021. Do you remember that? Do you remember how much they controlled us then? Oh, but now they can't control just the simplest things. Of course. It's crazy. Okay, I've said about as much as I can about Israel, but like I said, without saying things that will get me in trouble. Um, but what about? Did you guys? So Brian and I put up a video. It's a 9-minute long, almost 10-minute long video about Halloween, and it's like the history of Halloween, told by not a Christian perspective, just an honest look at how Samhain became Halloween. And I said it blows me away that there's certain people just want to deny what's plain and obvious. You know, like that I presented these facts, and obviously then we did commentary on it, and people don't like it. You know, people try to say, "Oh, Samhain is actually a Christian holiday," or what? No, it's actually All Hallows Eve or All Saints Day, and it was the pagans who tried to co-opt it. I mean, you're like guys, you know that they were celebrating this holiday, this holy day, unholy day, before Jesus, right? Before Jesus came and was born to Mary, died for our sins, rose again. They were celebrating all this same stuff on like around the fall equinox. They're celebrating when the dark half of the year comes up. It's insane that people try to say, "Oh, this was really a Christian holiday," but it's the pagans who did this to it. And then you're like, okay, so why is it celebrated the way it is right now? Well, that's the thing. Well, it's interesting, and I said, obviously, I'm not out here to offend. I'm just out here to try to tell the truth. Most of the people on my page know that I'm not a Catholic, right? I hope you know that. So when you say that the Pope started the tradition, you know that that's actually not giving any more credibility with guys like me. Because I'm like, okay, so maybe let's just get crazy and say, all right, the Pope invented All Hallows Eve. Okay? You guys with me here? It's still satanic. It's still satanic. You know, I don't care if it wasn't the Druids who did it first. If it was the Catholic Church did it first, it is just as satanic, because it's like, where is Jesus involved in this? And isn't it interesting? So like when Paul tells the Thessalonians, he says that we don't mourn the way the pagans do, the people with no hope. So like we wouldn't have a time to like basically set dinner tables for empty places at the table for people who died. Because we don't do that kind of stuff, because we believe, obviously, if we're in Christ, we're all going to rise again at the end. But they don't really believe that, right? Because they're celebrating the dead, the spirits. I mean, and obviously when you get into the mythologies about Samhain, it talks about spirits and fairies. And like I said, it's so interesting how this always comes back to like the ancient angels topic, where like, guys, fairies are Disney-fied, right? So the Disney took things that are satanic and they made them all soft and cuddly. That's why when you see a fairy, it looks like Tinkerbell. Oh, fairies are pretty. They're fun. Fairies are demons. Like, fairies are like spirits. It's like spirits / fairies. Same thing. But obviously, even if you go back into like the what's interesting is like Peter Pan, the movie Peter Pan. So just think about his name. I mean, obviously his first name kind of sounds like something. It's not like the Apostle Peter. And then you have Pan. So Peter Pan literally plays the Pan pipes. And if you guys aren't sure who Pan is like the goat. He's like a goat demon. He's like this part man, part goat of the forest, and he plays his pan pipes, and typically he kidnaps people. That's Pan. Okay, so if Pan the deity was known for, you know, kind of being in the forest, you know, you see Peter Pan's wearing green, he's got like a feather in his hat, he's playing the pipes. What does he do in that movie? He takes children in their pajamas out their window. But before he does that, he has a little scout that goes before him, right? And who's the scout that goes before him? That would be Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell went in the window first, and then they take the kids to Never Never Land. Now, obviously, when it's Disney-fied, it sounds like a fun place. But you think about it, it's like where the pirates are at. It's like it's not a good place. It's probably like a place you don't come back from. You know, you never grow up when you go to Never Never Land, probably because you don't ever get a chance to grow up. Right? So again, so like you have Disney make this thing sound all soft and cuddly. It's not. It's very, I mean, it's like I said, obviously that's a sick subject when you know who like Pan the deity is. He's like this weird, he's part goat and he's involved, he's like, he has this like, I don't even want to say it. It's like, there's some kind of a thing about him in like the, I don't know, sex and stuff. Like he's involved in like fertility stuff. Gross. Like that's what I said. I didn't even want to say it. It's gross. But that's what happens. Like I said, Disney had made so many things that should not have been cute and cuddly, innocent. And that's why like everybody's a witch, and you know, like all the princess movies involve magic. There's always witches, and then there's fairy godmothers. So just think about fairy godmother. It's like a demon godmother. That's what they are. It's crazy. It's crazy, but that's what happens. Yeah, well, free. You know, I guess Walt Disney. Yeah, they have the Club 33. Walt Disney was in the is it the De Moliere International, and it was some kind of branch of like the Rosicrucians, but it was like for the youngins. I don't know how old the people were, but obviously it's like you don't get involved in a mystery school like that without still continuing to, you know, climb the ladder. And obviously there's so much stuff in the Disney stuff where like even I did a breakdown of Donald Duck in the Mathmagic Land, where it's all about the magic pentagram, sacred geometry, straight up Freemasonry. That's all it is. Well, that's the funny thing is like you realize that like most of the stuff you see on TV these days, there's nothing new under the sun. These people are not that creative. What you have in like Disney, they took a lot of old fables and stories like Hans Christian Andersen, and they turned them into movies. You know, like, but what did they actually invent? Like, how many stories did they actually create themselves? I'm not even sure. I mean, the only thing I can really think about is like maybe Frozen, and Frozen is satanic. That's what I said. I joked in my Frozen video. I did a video about Frozen 2 and basically trying to show that there's connection between that movie and potentially the Hoover Dam. And I said, didn't you notice like back in the day you had a princess versus a witch was a typical Disney movie? You know, think like Snow White. But then what you had in Frozen 2, you had a witch who happens to be a princess or a queen, and she's fighting a dam. That's weird. That movie is so weird, and the esoteric meanings in that movie, it's bizarre. But that's what I'm saying. So that's what you get when they write the movies. Or you might get Hocus Pocus. You guys remember that garbage movie and they just made a second one? Yeah, I did a video last year about Hocus Pocus. And so what this movie was about. Okay, so these witches were burned at the stake. Okay, so the witches from the Hocus Pocus movie were burned at the stake. But before they did, they said they were going to come back, and they put a curse like on the town. So when they revived, it was like on a full moon on Halloween. Of course, when the veil's thin, so the witches came back, and they had one chance to basically to be resurrected, and they needed the blood of a young child. This is a Disney movie. This is like a PG movie that's supposed to be fun. These witches, and literally there's a book. They had to use a spell. They had to use a spell that came out of a spell book that had an all-seeing eye on it. It was bound together with human skin, and it was written in blood. It was the Black Flame Candle spell. Unbelievable. But that's Disney, guys. You know, even what was the other one? No, it was the Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, crazy old movie. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like I said, that sounds like adrenochrome to me. They need the blood of a young child in order to be resurrected. Unbelievable. Yeah, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks was like an old movie. Was it I forget, was it like Angela Lansbury? It's some kind of real old movie. And they had a spell book in that movie, and I think it was the spell book of Astaroth. Well, a variation of that name is a real deity, likely a demon, fallen angel, Astaroth. Like that's in the Bible, but that's in there. And so Astaroth had a sigil in the movie on the spell book, and it's a pentagram. I mean, like, and this movie was supposed to be like, fun movie for kids. Oh, it's unbelievable. Like I said, so this is how like stuff like magic and the occult got put into these kids movies, and that's why people think, oh, Halloween's not bad. Halloween's fine. And it's like when I was reading through the history of Samhain, because I called it Samhain, Samhain, Halloween. Well, that was in Bed Knobs and Broomsticks had the spell book of Astaroth, which, like I said, is a real deity. It's real, either a real demon or a real fallen angel. And then so you had like in the Samhain traditions. So just know, like, obviously our calendar is different than it was before. So they were celebrating the dark half of the year, and so they're kind of like the people there were trying to get their last harvest, and then what they were trying to do, as I mentioned, they were trying to appease the fairies or the spirits in order to survive the winter. And so they basically had to decide which cattle to slaughter or which animals to slaughter. And of course, yeah, but they were also trying to appease the spirits. Okay, so what did they do? What were they willing to sacrifice in order to, like, for their livestock to survive and themselves to survive? Gosh, what would people be willing to do? Well, I mean, like, they had divination rituals, they had everything. I mean, like, the whole nine of, like, they did, obviously they put the jack-o'-lanterns, the turnips, they hollowed those things out. They created grotesque faces on it. They created little basically gargoyles to ward off demons, evil spirits. It's crazy. What did it say? JC, you think you can do a video on intentions for fallen angels want to enslave humanity and defy Jesus? Well, I mean, that's more or less that's kind of what I typically do, but I don't know, like, it would have to be very specific. I got to get like give me an angle on that. That's sort of, obviously we hint at that in Ancient Angels. That's a very specific topic, but yes, I can work on that. I'm sure I can. Yeah, and then I had another video I released where it was funny because we didn't even plan about this. We didn't plan this. We were just talking about like Halloween costumes, and so I was saying when my girls were little, I basically had one rule. I said, like, I grew up in a Christian house and I wasn't allowed to celebrate Halloween, but my one rule is basically like, all right, I'll let you guys celebrate, but nothing evil. You can't dress up as anything evil. So of course back then I thought like princess stuff was fine. Now it's like, what isn't evil? Because like I said, because I don't think Disney has good intentions. They make evil stuff seem less evil, but actually that's not good, right? That's actually more deceptive and that's more dangerous because those things aren't good. And then so what you have going on now is like, so even as a boy, I would have liked all the comic book stuff. But now the more research I've done, I realize that all the comic book characters are either fallen angels themselves, represent fallen angels, or they represent like Nephilim, or they represent Antichrist figures. And it just so happens that guys like Tony Stark, Iron Man, who was like the biggest movie star, Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man was about the biggest movie star in the world when they were doing the Infinity War in the Endgame series. And it just so happens they made him the Antichrist in the comic books. His dad, Howard Stark, who is crazy, is so crazy that his dad is the spitting image of Jack Parsons. So if you guys aren't sure who Jack Parsons is, Jack Parsons created JPL, and that's the Jet Propulsion Lab that NASA uses to power the rockets. Okay? So this guy was like a rocket scientist before there was rocket science. He was also happened to be a Satanist. And the crazy thing is his real name is not actually Jack. He was named after his dad, and his dad's name was Marvel. So his actually real name is Marvel Parsons. So Tony Stark's dad in the comic books looks just like Jack Parsons, who was a Satanist and obviously like a rocket genius. And it just so happens that Howard Stark in the comic books sells his son's soul to Mephisto, who's obviously short for Mephistopheles, who's basically Marvel's version of the devil. And after he sells his son's soul to the devil, obviously I guess he gets his reward, whatever that is. Tony Stark, Iron Man, becomes the son of the devil, becomes the Antichrist. It is absolutely insane. I mean, like, but that, so then they present him as the ultimate good guy in the, what's going on? Yeah, they present him as the ultimate good guy in the comics or in the movies. And he says, remember that he has that big line where Thanos is saying, I am, which I said is obviously something Jesus said. It's something that the burning bush says. It's basically saying, I'm God. So Thanos is saying, I am inevitable. Tony Stark takes the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos, and then he says, I am Iron Man. And so like he's basically saying he is God. Spirit of Antichrist. And so I share all that to say this. I mentioned that to Brian, and Brian never heard that. So obviously he wanted to hear that story. So I made a reel based on that, and I had there's the Iron Man song from Black Sabbath, which again, if you look at the lyrics of it, it's crazy. No, like you said, you couldn't. The connections are so vast and so intricate that I was saying the only way this makes sense is if demons were involved. The same demons were inspiring the song, inspiring the comic artists, inspiring Disney, because now you have this story that makes perfect sense, and then you get into like potentially biblical prophecy with the iron feet, the iron and clay feet. Yeah, iron and clay. You have Iron Man who becomes the Antichrist. You have that Iron Man song by Black Sabbath, and it's too strange for it not to be related. This is too much. Yeah, Aleister Crowley, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne. So I share that into on Instagram, and it's obviously other social media apps, and I have people say, "You're reaching," or "You conspiracy theorists crack me up," and it's like, this is not a theory. Like I literally I got the receipts. I just showed you an article with the headline that Marvel just casually announced that Iron Man is the Antichrist. I mean, like literally in the comic book, they make him the Antichrist. Like, this is not a theory or a conspiracy. This is like straight up. This is what the comics say. And then you say then you wrap it into the Earth 616. So in the Doctor Strange movies, they basically have there's alternate universes, and so they each are numbered. And so our number for our universe is 616. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, in an early translation of the Bible, the early translation of Revelation, they found a papyrus where it actually doesn't say 666 on it being the number of the beast. It actually says 616. Okay? So the number of our universe just happens to be what the book of Revelation, some translations say, is the number of the beast. Okay, so think about it. So these people and the guys who wrote the Earth 616 series literally are into chaos magic and Aleister Crowley. So think about it. So Marvel releases a series called 616. It's in the Doctor Strange movie, and then their main character is the Antichrist. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up, but people will still say, you're reaching, bro. They'll still say, like, that the stuff about Halloween, oh no, that's actually a Christian holiday. It's the pagans who made it pagan. it's the conspiracy theorists that point out, like, straight up facts now. We're the problem. But like I said earlier, I'm at the point now where it's like, I feel like Paul when he's in the book of Acts, when he tells certain people the gospel and they don't believe, and he's just like, the blood's on y'all's hands now. I told you I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to get nasty, I'll block you. But like, I'm not gonna fight about stuff that's like, you would argue with me about what color the sky is if you wanted it to be a certain color. I'm just telling you what color it is. I'm not gonna fight with people like that anymore. Well, I mean, a safe haven. Well, I mean, Jesus didn't promise us like that our flesh would never be harmed. He just said, don't fear the person who can harm your flesh. So I think that's the whole point, is like that. I think when you do know you have a promise outside of this place, you don't worry about the flesh as much. But I mean, we're completely in the place where now, like, people do just try to they want to believe what their heart wants them to believe, and they don't really care outside of that. I mean, I guess, but again, that's probably not new. That's nothing new under the sun. I did a video about the sky being blue, and biblically, I did not do you fast? I have fasted before. I have not done it in a while. I need to. I did a video about the sky being blue, and it was not because of the water. Biblically, and I'm going to do a video about this. So biblically, I was reading through Revelation, and my study Bible mentions that, like, there's several references to a sea of glass. And the sea of glass is basically, this is what the Bible says. And you guys can say this is a metaphor or it's allegory, but it seems kind of literal to me. So you have the sea of glass it's basically the firmament. It's a sea of glass is made of, based on the translation you read, it's either made out of sapphire or lapis lazuli. And so lapis lazuli, I think lapis meant stone and lazuli meant of heaven. And so, like, they're literally blue stones. So is it possible that that's why the sky is blue? Is it because you have a sea of glass, and of course it's funny because the Bible I'm reading is not necessarily saying that it's not a flat earth Bible, put it that way. But it says the sea of glass is heaven's floor, and it's this realm or this universe's ceiling. Crazy stuff. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. But yeah, so I think that I thought that was pretty cool, especially when you realize that it's saying like lapis lazuli it basically means stone of heaven. And it's like, if you look at it, it's a beautiful blue stone. It's also like, obviously there's a transparency to it. Is that why the sky is blue? I think that it is. I like that interpretation, because if you really think about it, water isn't really blue. Water is blue when it reflects something else. Water's clear. So if it was just water up there, I mean, there is water up there, but is that giving it the color? I think it's the firmament that makes it blue. That's my take on that. Biblically, I think I can make a pretty good case for that. But yeah, I'm gonna have to do that, where I'm gonna start at some point, either probably on Decoding Babylon. We're gonna go through like all the verses about what it says about the cosmos or the heavens and the earth, and we're gonna break it down. Water's not blue. like put water in a glass and it's clear. I mean, it reflects whatever. That's why, like, if you ever go, you can go to a place where you have like a completely like just think about a day at the beach. It's crazy. Some people say, that the reason the sky's blue is because it reflects the ocean. But water, when the sky is gray, water looks gray. When it's blue, it looks blue. You know, like the sea reflects the sky, not the other way around. Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know that water is a tiny. Well, I'm saying, like, pure water is clear. So I'm saying that that's not giving that rich blue color. I think it's something else. Obviously, we do realize that there's a prism when light reflects a certain way. Like, obviously, there's different colors. So I'm not saying for sure. Why is your? It is when you raise it up to the sky. Well, no. Well, that's a good question. Is like that because there's not a good enough reflect. I mean, it's reflecting so many other things. What I'm saying is that, like, if the sky is, it's the sky that's blue, not the water. The water is a reflection of the sky. You know, that's why. What color is the water at night? It's black. It's not blue at night, is it? It looks pretty dark. I'm saying it's the light. It's the light and the reflection of the sky. And I believe that the sky is blue because of the firmament, the color of it. But yeah, guys. So hey, I'm about to jump off real quick. So Brian and I worked on we got a third trailer for Ancient Angels. I'd appreciate if you guys have seen the movie, just share the trailer. It's funny, I used an AI voice and people still knew it was me. People called me out because they knew the way I talked. Whatever. I guess that's not a bad thing. Probably, maybe not. Share that, please. And yeah, guys, if you guys have not seen Ancient Angels, link in my bio. It's gaining some momentum. We're getting excited about it. So we're hoping, like, obviously, if you liked it, share it. If you haven't seen it yet, obviously it's still available. And yeah, guys, we're super excited about that. Also, like I said, I got my shirt on again that says Jesus said there would be haters. And I said, obviously, I've not got my store ready yet, but yeah. Jesus said there would be haters. I'm gonna get my store up. And yes. I think I'm gonna bounce because the live is kicking me off, I guess, basically. But anyways, guys, I love you guys. Guys, I will see you guys on the next one. God bless.